Welcome to the Shift Method Podcast. I'm your host, Coach D. My goal is to shift the culture of health and fitness through evidence-based coaching and engaging content for the public and health fitness professionals alike. Thank you for tuning in, and I hope you all enjoy this episode. What's good, everyone? Coach D here with the Shift Method Podcast. Hope everyone's having a great day. This is going to be episode number 59 coming out on March 4th. First off, all my South Florida people that are on break, happy spring break, everyone. Hope you all are having a wonderful time, whether you're down in South Beach or on Las Olas Boulevard at night. You know, you're staying safe and having fun. I know for my students out there, you guys are busting your ass right now, and you deserve to have a bit of fun. So hopefully y'all take this time to recharge and refresh. And for those who are still a week or two away from spring break, I promise you, the end is in sight, right? Those midterms, those final exams that are kind of in the rearview mirror are kind of coming up closer. Everything's gonna be okay. You guys are gonna get a nice little break, get to enjoy yourselves very, very soon. I promise. This is gonna be a very, very cool episode. Thank you to my mentor, Dave Crump, who gave me this idea. And to be honest, I don't know if this has ever been done before. I'm sure somewhere it has, but you know what? I'm gonna officially say, unofficially, that this may be the first of a podcast of this type. And I'm actually going to interview one of my clients. This is probably at this point one of my longest lasting clients that I've had. We're coming up on about 2 years in the summer, if you can believe that. And that is my awesome, amazing, badass client, Nicole Lopez. Nicole, do you mind just kind of introducing yourself to the people?
Yeah, of course. Thanks so much for having me, Coach. I'm super excited to be here. Like you said, my name is Nicole. I've been your client for 2 years now. I am 30 years old, 30 years young, and I'm a law student, also working for a law firm at the same time. And generally, I just love music and reading and hanging out with my family, and also now working out, thanks to you.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And don't forget, like you mentioned, the music, a badass bass player, right? She's got some skills. She's been
Yeah,
in a band
yeah.
before, plays for the church,
Been
so
in a
she's got some
band
skills.
before, plays for, yeah, been in many bands, played for bar bands, to worship teams, to studio stuff as well. So accomplished musician, definitely. So I usually tell people I'm becoming a lawyer just to support my financial guitars and all of my pedals and all of my basses. That's the only reason why.
Right. Ultimately, when you get your four-bedroom house, two of them can be dedicated purely to guitars and equipment,
Of
right?
course. Yeah.
Absolutely.
They all need
Absolutely.
their own rooms. Absolutely.
Exactly. And then also quite a bit of an athlete growing up, right?
Yes, collegiate athlete, played soccer forward and right flank all the way through college, and love like had an amazing time in college playing ball as well. But it was really just something to get me to go to school. But it also kept me really fit as a younger person, definitely.
Yeah, yeah. And this is why it's really cool to have Nicole kind of on as like my first like conversation having my clients. I'm hoping maybe once a month to bring on some of my clients to talk about their lives.
Yeah,
Because I've had a big shift in how I kind of identify who my target demographic is. You know, I kind of took a step back and was like, what do all my clients have in common? When I started going through each person, I was like, a lot of them are very high performing individuals, right? Again, you heard Nicole, she's at the very young age of 30 years old, man. And look, she is a decorated, former athlete. She is a musician, a very good one. I've seen her play. She's phenomenal. And she's going to be a lawyer soon. And so, like, she is doing on top of a bunch of other amazing things with like crushing her own personal fitness goals, giving time to friends and family and relationships. Like, she does a lot. And so, I wanted her to kind of, talk about her experience because for those who are listening, are like, what's it like from the client's perspective outside of like a coach's perspective or like someone who has training, knowledge, and experience? What's it like from someone who maybe a couple of years ago wasn't in the same spot she's in today? So we're gonna pick
yeah,
Nicole's brain a little bit here. So you talked a little bit about, your background slightly about, where you're from, what you do. First off, whatever you're willing to share, like kind of walk us through like childhood, what like childhood was like for you, like going
sure.
from like, living down South Florida, becoming an athlete, and ultimately like going to law school. Like what was that
Yeah.
journey like?
Yeah, so I grew up in South Florida, Miami, Hialeah area. So I come from a Colombian, very Hispanic background, and both my parents were very fit individuals who are very also smart. My mom played basketball for her country. My dad was a goalie in soccer. They are both in the medical lab field, very high positions in that area. High, like we said, very high lifestyle, like high functioning, intelligent people who are very goal oriented as well. I have an older sister who is an attorney and does about a billion things all at once also. And she was very high in academics and everything, and I very slowly followed behind. But I played, it was either music or soccer, and I would spend about maybe 2 hours, 5 days a week training, mostly just running nonstop and agility training until I was about 20. So a
Yeah.
full lifetime of nonstop stress and a full lifetime of waking up early. And they would, once you get to the collegiate level, they provide meals as well. So you start eating what they give you and not questioning it because you're going for free. So I did that all the way through college and everything, graduated with a degree in sciences as well. And then once I got out of college and I was an adult or a young adult, you would say, in my early 20s, I was injured, like most college athletes are who get injured. And when I didn't have the pressure of having to play because I was in recovery and I was sort of just doing PT and all of the stretches that they make you do, I let go of having to train and didn't have that pressure anymore and kind of just stuck around music. And I think because I was younger, I didn't need to train as much to be good because your body just naturally is very pretty strong and pretty agility was there and everything. But I very it quickly like all left me when I wasn't able to train. And I ended up stopped training. And between the ages of like 22 to 20, maybe 25, 26, I tried different things to kind of just get me back in shape. I saw that I gained the weight that I had not seen before. I gained that weight. I also became very sluggish. Wasn't sleeping as much because I just wasn't training as much. So I didn't really have to sleep. I would just stay up playing guitar. And then I gained the weight and I became friends with people who were active in the gym. And I was like, I remember those days. I don't want to do that anymore. That seems really like a pain, honestly, to have to wake up and just run and do the
Mhm.
agility stuff and the high intense interval training wasn't something that I was totally in love with anymore. So I tried different gyms. A lot of them were group fitness stuff. Started with the F45 gym, which is the 45 minutes, about 4 days a week. Uh, it's like 3 days cardio, 2 days lifting, and you pick what times you go, and you're in and out of there in 45 minutes. It's a lot of cardio, and I lost the weight pretty quick actually because it was a lot of high intensity training.
Mhm.
And I lost like maybe 2, 3 pounds, but then I would gain it after not going for like a week. I would just gain it right back. And then after doing that, I tried 9 rounds, which is the kickboxing gym. I was there for about like a couple months, I believe, and it also is a lot of high cardio, high interval training, and it's also a ton of fun. Like all of the fighting stuff
Oh yeah.
is great, and I really did enjoy it. My instructor was a Muay Thai instructor, and he was great. And our one-on-ones were always just a blast. I lost some weight, but then I would just gain it right back if I would like travel and then come back after like a week. I would just gain the weight right back. But thankfully, I've always been a person where I don't mind the weight. If I feel okay, I don't really mind looking heavier. Obviously, I want to look thinner, but I'm not someone who like is completely torn apart with gaining a couple pounds. But and I'm thankful for that. But I definitely would notice that I wasn't stronger anymore. I couldn't run as far as I used to, and then I started after I did one CrossFit competition. I feel like it was by accident. I feel like I one of my friends was doing a partnered CrossFit competition and asked me to partner with her. And I was like,
Mm.
sure, what does it entail? Like really? And she's like, oh, just like throwing bags. and stuff.
Like I could do
It
that.
was so bad. It was not a good experience whatsoever. I laughed my way through it. It's one of those things like it is what it is. We're gonna lose because of me because I have no idea of any of the techniques that you're using. And also I feel like everybody's gonna hurt their back with the way that they're doing stuff because they're doing it so fast, such heavy weight. And I was like, this doesn't seem safe. Um, and and then eventually I kind of like just wandered back into 9 rounds and I started just looking more into becoming fit. I was in the middle of my starting my law career for my law firm as a paralegal, and I realized that I needed the balance of going to the gym because I wanted to be someone who's strong. And not necessarily thin. Obviously, being thin is an amazing sort of symptom of working out, but I wanted to be somebody strong. I was getting older and I was definitely feeling it. And I wanted to be somebody who can walk into a gym and know what they're doing without like totally being lost.
Hmm.
I'm not somebody who's easily embarrassed, so I have no problem walking to a machine and reading the instructions. But at the same time, I didn't want to be somebody completely lost in the gym.
Right.
I signed up for a membership, but would just walk in and be like, I don't even know where to start. Like, I did like a few one-on-ones, but they were so heavy on like just getting you to come back that she mostly just explained the memberships versus the actual exercise. And I understand again that's their job. They're not really there to like help you as an individual. And then one day, I think as I was leaving, I think it was one of the Orange Theory gyms, but they do also like group fitness stuff.
Uh-huh.
I was scrolling through Instagram and there was an ad for a shift method, and it was like a crazy deal where I kept thinking like, whoever this person is like losing money by offering this.
Yeah, I think at the time it was
And
like I
I
was doing
was
like 90% off. It was like an $8 like
it was
initial session or
yeah,
something
it
like
was
that.
like I was less than $10. And I have friends who are physical like personal trainers, and they're like, yeah, that's like crazy cheap. Like you should do it. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I used to live in Boca, so it was right by my home. And it ended up being Coach Damien. And I think from like the first day, I was not only was I was like, man, that was hard, but it wasn't miserable. Like
Hmm.
I feel like at the CrossFit thing, I was miserable. At the F45, I felt like I didn't matter. Even though they have these TVs that tell you what to
Yeah.
do, I still wanted like that person to be like, hey, you're gonna break your back if you do it that way or something like that. And the Orange Theory people were it was also like group fitness where like you just walk in
Hmm.
and you can go through the motions but not really challenge yourself because nobody's looking at you. So I feel like I kind of cheated on that one too because I would just go in and not really do my best. But I walk into your program and we did our first session and I remember thinking like, okay, I wasn't put in a place where I was made uncomfortable because I felt weak or tired or something, but I was definitely put in a place where I needed to challenge myself in order not to embarrass myself.
Hmm.
But at the
Yes.
same time, it's what I needed at the time because I needed somebody to tell me like, hey, we need to work on this, this, and this. And I see that you can do that and this or whatever. And on top of that, we were in a gym using my normal like what a normal gym would have.
Hmm.
So I figured I was like, okay, these are instructions and trainings that I'm going to be able to carry on forever, not just like when I come specifically to this gym or to this trainer. And then I started the shift method stuff, which has been great. And I've stuck to it for 2 years, which is probably the longest I've ever stuck to something that isn't like guitar or soccer, you know?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, it's yeah.
I appreciate you saying all those awesome things. First off, is the like going back to the soccer side. I hear this
Mm-hmm.
so much from athletes. I've known a lot of high performing high school players and then ultimately people who went to college. And it's kind of a similar story of like, I was playing really hard in high school in the hopes to go to college. And then if they didn't get into college, it was like sports became and like sometimes exercise became like this thing you dreaded because it's like,
Yeah,
well, I'm not training for anything anymore that's like meaningful for my immediate future. And so it's like, all it just goes back to
correct.
like early morning for what? Like I'm not getting a scholarship. Or you get
Right.
into college in your
And it
situation.
gets yeah, it gets worse in college, I feel, because in college you're fighting for your life
Yes,
essentially. Like, you're fighting for
literally.
your next semester.
Yes.
And I know it's so taboo to say, but for women's sports specifically, like, it's hard to go pro. Like,
Oh yeah,
so you're fighting for your next semester, or you're fighting to stay on the team, and it's not it's very much like a psychological thing where, like, I'm gonna get up at 5 in the morning because these other girls are gonna be up at 5 in the morning, and I need to keep my spot, kind of thing. And
absolutely.
it doesn't, you don't really realize how much it gets to you till you graduate and you're like, there's no more games. Like, what do I do
Yes,
now?
it's a lot of times
And you
athletes
just
go
have to
through
hang
like
on. Yeah,
yeah, a lot of times athletes go through like not to, over dramatize, but it's a bit of an identity crisis. It's like I got up every
for
day.
sure.
I had this routine every day. My goal was try and go pro, try and go semi-pro, or at least I'm paying for my scholarship to forge my career, right? That's like the goal of
Absolutely.
collegiate
Yeah.
athletics. And then it's like that ends and it's like, well, what am I doing now? With and at least in your context, because you knew like, oh, I'm going to law school. But from like a fitness and wellness perspective, you're like, I really don't know like why I'm trying to be active anymore outside of like I guess I want to feel better and look better, but like I don't have the motivation that I normally would have. Or like you mentioned, like you would go for a couple weeks and
Right.
then like whatever. Like I don't feel like getting up that early because I don't have to technically anymore.
Yeah, nobody's gonna come knocking on my door if I don't wake up early. But a lot of and it is not. And you're right, not to over dramatize it, but yes, it is a lot of your identity as an athlete, or
Yeah.
even and a lot of them go into college with that identity, and then they leave, and then, like you said, they're just kind of weighing it out. And I think in my situation was a little bit different also, because when I graduated, I went into I was injured also. So it was like a really hard stop to any
Hmm.
training. And on top of that, I was trying to, get a job. And then I started my career in sciences and everything. And then I decided this isn't for me either. Let me figure. So, like, it was like, okay, I'm training, and then all of a sudden I'm not. Let me figure out life. I need to figure
Hmm.
out also how to keep myself somewhat healthy. Because I think, especially my parents sort of always said, like, having the fitness aspect of your life is something that you can control, and it's going to
Yes.
give you a lot of just life balance because you can control that. So every day, or at least a couple times a week, do something that you could control that's good for you, which would be working out or eating right and everything. So they're really good at sort of establishing that. And my sister and in my life, we're like, you have a lot of craziness happening all around
Uh-huh.
you. It's best to do something that you control, which is to take care of your body as much as you can, so that at least that's something that you can sort of get the reins on, and see results, and also adapt as you go along, as your life changes and everything.
Absolutely. That's another crazy experience that's very unique. You were raised by technically two professional athletes.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. At least my mom was definitely professional. I think my dad was a semi-professional, but my mom and all of her sisters played basketball at the, like, country, representing their university and country level. And then that also got them through school and everything. And then when
Yeah.
they came to the States, they became career women. But I mean, I've always had a basketball hoop or some sort of ball in my home. My cousins all played basketball because their moms played basketball, and some, maybe not to the level that I did, but more enough to substantially, our parents tell us, like, stay healthy, like, eat right, like,
Hmm.
watch out with your knees, like, bend your knees. It was always like a thing in our family, like, take care of yourself physically, because it matters, and it helps with, like, just brain balance.
Absolutely. And that's always a good foundation to have. But then, like you mentioned, you end up finishing college, you end up leaving, and then you see this guy online charging a really cheap introduction
Yeah.
section. So I want to dive into that a little bit. So you see the ad online, right? When I was running those kind of ads. And then
Yes.
what was I know you mentioned and I know this about you, you're not someone who gets easily embarrassed, but when you were coming to that
No.
very first session, do you remember maybe like how you felt? Were you anxious? Like, oh man, is this guy gonna be
I,
judgmental? Like what
yeah.
what was kind of like your perception of like what it's gonna like to see a trainer in person?
I think reached. So I do have a few friends who are also trainers, and I never trained with them mostly because I always felt like they wouldn't take it seriously. Like we would just end up joking around. But I did, yeah, I did tell one of my friends that I was going to go to my first personal training session, which I haven't had in years, and she was like, "Oh, just be ready to like sweat." And I was like, that's such a weird thing to say. But okay, so I remember it was early too. I think our first session was like 6:30 or
I
7.
think so, yeah.
And I wasn't waking up early anymore because I don't really start work till like 10 realistically. So I was like, okay, let's like try to be responsible. And I'm like driving on my way over, and I remember thinking like, okay, I'm gonna like sweat. And I was like, I shouldn't have worn pants, especially because I wore like tights instead of shorts.
Yeah.
And I think I was more so nervous for myself. I didn't doubt that because I scrolled through your page, and I remember
Mhm.
thinking like, oh, this is like somebody who knows what they're doing, and they're also involved with the university at some sort of like training
Mhm.
level and everything. So they definitely know what they're doing. I was more nervous for myself and just thinking like, I hope that I can like do this. I don't think it ever clicked that like it's not that I can't do this, it's more so that this person is supposed to help me reach my own goals. Like
Mm,
I'm not there for your goals, I'm there for my own goals.
yes.
So and then also the atmosphere in the gym was very respectful to the fact like I'm here with a personal trainer. And they kind of like help facilitate that and let you do your thing kind of thing, which is great
Yeah.
also.
Johnny O's, they're awesome. They're super like hands off in the sense of
Yeah,
like they just want you to come have a good time and like not get in your way.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Where it's such a like there's camaraderie, but at the same time they're like, go do your thing, like you're killing it. And I know that you're also being trained by like a professional, so let's not get in your way kind of thing, which is great.
100%. Now, aside from, so you mentioned, obviously like looking for someone to help you out and like stay on a plan. What were
Mhm.
like some of the other barriers you feel like were keeping you from being consistent at the other times you tried, like at the F45, at the 9 round, the Orange Theory? What were some things you feel like just got in the way?
Times it would be that I think a big percentage of it is just accountability. Those group fitness gyms, even the CrossFit gyms, which are known to be like family, like
Mm,
we're this
right,
like
right.
scary tribe. Um, yeah, they're like it was always, first of all, I feel like it was just general training where even if all that time that I was at F45, I never increased the weight that I was lifting
Mm,
because they do have lifting and everything, but I was always just plateaued. At one point I would just plateau and stop losing weight because it never elevated more to that because no one was ever looking at me specifically and being like, oh, you were here 2 days ago, make sure you up the weight, or
hmm.
it's time to up the weight or whatever it is. And then when I wouldn't show up, even to the CrossFit gyms, it was always like, keep going, like nobody cared
Yeah,
because it's fine. You're like you're just actually you help this out by giving us a space for somebody else.
yeah.
And so and the F45 system, I think, was maybe one of my preferred systems because you have to save your spot in the class from the day before.
Mm,
Um, and they're also like really expensive, but like they you save your spot from the day before or 2 days before, and if you don't show up, like you don't get your class back or whatever it is. And again, it was just the accountability and the fact that because it isn't tailored to specifically what I need, it wasn't really training. It was just high cardio until
right.
you like can no longer breathe, and then you don't want to come back because you didn't enjoy the moment in that gym at all.
Yeah. And group fitness is an amazing thing. F45s
Yeah,
are popular for a reason. Orange Theory has a cult-like mentality and they do serve a purpose, right? But they're not for everyone. Like sometimes people
yeah,
prefer like or need that more individualized attention because they want to, pursue or perform a little higher, or they want more like individualized progressions over time where it's like, I can't manage a class of 30 people super individualistically. Like
yeah.
that's just not really feasible for a group setting like that.
Yeah, and I did try the CrossFit gyms, and I do have friends who love their CrossFit stuff, but at the same, it just wasn't for me in that there's just so much. First of all, there's a lot of yelling that happens
Oh yeah.
in CrossFit. It's a lot of yelling. And again, it was like because I'm going at their timers and everything. Their timers are so set. I wouldn't really get the movement of the exercise till the last set,
Hmm.
where I was like, first set is me just like figuring out what's going on. Second set was me figuring out the motion, and then by my third set, where I finally got the movement down, or the lift, or what the snap, whatever it was that they were
Yeah.
teaching us, it was over, and I had to
Yep.
move on
You're like, dang,
to the
I was
next.
just
Yeah,
getting good
and
at
I was like, I
it.
just got good. I know we're only here for an hour, but like I could go back and like I and being that I knew like what working out really is, or what fitness really was, I wanted to make sure I got the movement down before I moved on to the next spot. So I felt like the first few months of my whatever CrossFit gym I would have attended would have been me just learning the movements. Even though they do offer like one-on-one training,
Hmm.
um, you get out kind of discouraged your first couple of
Yeah.
times, where I was like, I kind of don't want to come back because like it's gonna take me a couple months to figure out the movement, and by that time I'm probably gonna get injured again because I'm 30 years old and can't like do the crazy like butterfly things.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, like
The
I'm
Kevin
not gonna
pull-ups.
risk it.
Where you
Yeah.
sway.
Yeah, it's like whiplash every time. I'm like, I
I'm
know
good.
that I'm doing it. Yeah, I know I'm doing it wrong, but I also don't want to risk like taking the chances to learn it and do
Hmm.
it so wrong that I get injured. Because CrossFit is incredible, but it's just not it's not for me specifically. It just isn't.
Yeah.
Maybe if I was like 20, sure,
Yeah.
do
The same thing. It's
all of
some
the
people,
backflips all the time.
yeah, some people love it. Some people love walking on their hands. Other people, they want a more
Yeah,
individualized approach, and that is totally okay, man.
yeah,
Nothing against that.
yeah.
Now,
Yeah, I had a conversation with a friend who's in CrossFit, and he was telling me like he was explaining the walking on the hands thing, and I was like, I'm never gonna use
you're like,
that.
I'm good.
Like it's not one of my goals. And he was like, yeah, I guess it's not really functional. And I'm like, that's okay. Like it's cool. It's just not my goal.
If I lose my legs, then I will come back to you, sir.
Bam, I would 100%. There's motivation enough.
There's your goal.
I'd
Exactly,
be
exactly.
sick. No.
Now, okay, so you meet
Totally.
me for the first time, right? We do our initial
Hmm.
consultation. You get a little bit of accountability. What would you say? Because like you've had a couple of goals and I feel like you've crushed them. Like you came in, I know you said weight wasn't super important, but you went from like 160 to 140 at one point. You got stronger. You liked your
Yeah.
aesthetics. What was like the biggest surprise or like thing that you noticed in the course of your training? We're like, oh crap, like I'm noticing that this is right for me. Like, what was that thing that kind of like stuck out? Maybe like
Yeah.
that light bulb moment.
Uh, I think one of the bigger ones for me specifically is just the amount of confidence it gave me, where it was like, okay, I go and I train. It gives me confidence not only knowing that I'm strong and that I'm fit, but also it's like an ego boost to be somebody who's like fit because they worked on it,
Yeah.
and like because they dedicated their time to it. That was something that I wanted. One of my goals was to be like a gym person. Like I wanted to be able to walk into a room and talk about fitness with people because I think it's important.
Yeah.
And the second thing was that I was progressing, maybe not super fast in like aesthetically, but I was progressing in that I was learning new movements and new lifting and everything pretty quickly, I think. um I think in college I never really had a chance to do any real weighted stuff. It was always body weight,
Hmm.
because I just had to run faster, I guess. But mostly it was I'm learning to lift like heavier, like a lot heavier than what I used to. And I would always like give myself like little tests, and it was usually in lifting my nephews. So I have two nephews who are 5 and 8 right now. And 2 years ago, you know, they're still really growing and everything, but I would have to use like a lot of my strength to just lift them up. And I started seeing like, oh, lifting up my nephews is getting easier,
Yeah.
to the point where like sometimes like a couple months ago, I was able to lift the heavier one up with just like arm strength, where I was like, don't move. I'm like, put your arms like this. I want to try something with you. And he's like, okay. And I was able to just purely just like from bicep movement, just
Yes.
lift him up. And my family started complimenting me just on not only was I losing the weight, but also they were complimenting on I'm looking stronger, because I think in college I was always skinny, but I
Mm,
wasn't like strong. So
right.
they're like, you like your arms are like showing, or it was a lot in like the quads and my calves, which have always been like defined because of running,
Of
but they
course.
were fit, like they were stronger.
Yeah.
And my brother-in-law, who is also he's done lifting before and weightlifting before, he was like, yeah, like I could tell, like like the movement, and I was like, that's what I wanted. I wanted to show that like I could not only like muscle my way through a lift, but I actually know how to do it correctly so that I'm engaging the right muscles. And I think that was like a really big booster. We're like, this is working because before in F45, sure I could lift this weight up and like, but I don't know if I'm doing it with just my back. And one day I'll throw it up my back. But in implementing little tests of like lifting my cousin, lifting my nephews up, or even lifting my sister, because I think she's at like 110,
Yeah.
like a little, yeah, she's super small. So like that was always these little tests that I would give myself of like, hey, this is working because I know how to lift things outside the
Hmm.
gym using gym mechanics. And then also just the confidence of being a gym person was really, really fun for me because it was like, finally, I know what like my coaches were talking about back then
Hmm.
about like resistance and push versus pull days. I'm like, just tell me where to run. But now it makes way more sense, like
Yeah.
how you're organizing all of my workouts. And I think also I was playing a couple like last year, I was playing out in more shows. And even though the guys helped me lift my amps up and everything, when I get home super tired from a show and have to bring the amp down from the car or into the car, it was no longer a struggle. It was just something again, just like it became like a natural movement that I do on my in my workouts. And it was great because again, even though I'm not super old, at 30, you have to start thinking about like, let's not throw out my back
Yes.
by lifting the space. Or let me like make sure that I position myself well in this like weird movement that I'm doing. Which is what everybody should be thinking about because it does sneak up on you.
Absolutely. Two things. First, on the like a big part of people I work with, people who are either dealing with pain or injury or afraid of it, because that's an area I try and
Yeah.
specialize in. I'm gonna preface this by saying deadlifts are not bad. Everyone deadlifts throughout their day to day. If you pick something up off the floor like a box or a heavy piece of equipment, or you pick up your kid,
Yeah.
newsflash, you're deadlifting. And so the type of deadlift you do is going to be depend on your goals. And Nicole still deadlifts to this day in some form or fashion. But I remember like maybe about 4 or 5 months into our training, I even had a post about this where you were deadlifting, normal day, form looked great, you
Dude.
crushed it, and you felt fine during. And then like 2 or 3 exercises later, you were just getting like back spasms, just like cramps.
Yes.
You remember
Yes.
that?
I remember that day. Yeah. And I
Yes.
remember the podcast after. I do remember that day.
And I don't know
Uh
if it was
it,
like
it
it's lack of sleep or like stress or like a combo or like dehydration, whatever. And I remember you're like, dude, I think we're doing like lunges and like some kind of cardio move. You're like,
mhm.
my like
Something
back is
where I
like
wasn't
cramping.
lifting weight. I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
I
That's
think
yeah,
this
it
is
was like you're
gonna
like we're
yeah.
doing body weight stuff, and you're like, my like mid back
Yeah,
is
I'm a
just like
paraplegic.
spazzing on
Yeah.
me. And so we like stretched you
Yeah.
out for the rest of the session. We like called the session. And then I remember I'm like, dude, don't worry. Like, it's probably just a muscle spasm. It's probably a cramp.
Yeah.
You're gonna be fine. And then like 2 days later, you came back like, I'm still a little cramped. I'm still a little sore. We did some light movement. And then like fast forward
Hmm.
like a week, you were fine. And I think you like
Mm,
even PR'd
fine.
on like deadlifting again. It was like nothing had
Yeah.
happened.
Yeah, which so I remember that day for some reason, like really vividly. I don't think if like I think college athletes have like PTSD of like I can't get injured, whatever. So I
Hmm.
think that kind of kicked in. But I remember it. You're right. It was in a movement that did not involve any heavy weights, where I felt like something happened on the left side of my back, and for, as a Hispanic woman, I was already like, my mom is gonna kill me if I get injured. Like that's just the Hispanic person to me was like, my mom is going to beat my butt.
Of
But you remained very calm, and which actually helped
course.
me a lot when I was like, okay, if like the guy who is training me and the professional says that it's fine,
Hmm.
I'm going to be fine. And we did do a lot of stretching after, um, and and you encouraged me to come to the next training sessions to sort of
Yes.
not take a break to allow my body to cool down with that spasm, but instead push it to alleviate any sort of whatever was happening in there. And I think like 2 sessions later, I was completely fine. But it was one of those things where my brain was like, oh gosh, I can't get injured because that's like taboo for any athlete. My mom is gonna beat my butt. And then but just confidence in knowing like, okay, if my trainer is telling me to come back, it's like I trust him enough to know that he's not telling me to come back so that he doesn't lose a client. I trust him enough that he's telling me to come back to take care of myself, kind of thing. And I
Absolutely.
don't think I think that was the one other than being a little bit nauseous. I think that's the one time that I had like a weird
I'm pretty sure
injury or
too.
something since training. I don't think I have not had a serious muscle injury or even like pool or anything since training with you. Which and I used to have a lot of bad cramps before like before I started training consistently with you. I used to cramp up on like incline walks sometimes
Hmm.
just because I didn't know what I was doing or I was pushing my body too hard
Yeah.
or I was just dehydrated. But since implementing training and since implementing sort of like the diet that goes along with training, I haven't had any like aches or at least sort of sure because I'm
Yeah.
working
Yeah.
out, but not like backache or sort of neck ache or anything like that. It's been pretty consistently, knock on wood, fine, which is strange for me at least,
Absolutely. And the
for
reason I
sure.
highlight that, not to scare people, like, nothing, I say there's no free biological lunches, right? Like training is
Yeah.
extraordinarily safe. In fact, it's more dangerous to not exercise than it is to exercise, right? Everything comes with risk. Exercising per like 1,000 hours, you might get like 3 injuries. Meaning, like, if you train 3 times a week, every week for about 5 or 6 years, you maybe will expect some kind of injury. And an injury could be
Hmm.
dropping a plate on your finger or stubbing your toe or tweaking, like, your hamstring for a day or two. Like, it's
Yeah.
very, very, very minuscule compared to like you're not active for a decade and now you're dealing with obesity and lower back pain from being inactive. And so, showing that like, hey, sometimes like shit just happens. Like no rhyme or
Yeah.
reason. Someone who's already been active, doing all the right things, had a weird cramp, spasm, whatever, tweak, and then she's fine. And I knew she was going to be
Yeah.
fine because I've worked with clients before who come in with pain. I've had clients in my young past who have just had pain and injury throughout training. And so also
Hmm.
for like my young coaches out there, like when your client is dealing with something, obviously be empathetic, like be a good person, but like do not panic, right? Unless it's an emergency medical situation, like do not panic, right? If you panic, you're going to make your client panic. And majority of the time, unless again, it's something where like, they fractured their leg and they got their bone sticking out, like you don't need to
Yeah.
freak out and call 911. You just need to reassure them, let them know things are okay, modify accordingly. And then before you know it, they're going to be back to training as per usual. So
Yeah.
if you're worried
Definitely.
about that or you're dealing with that right now, it's not out of the normal and you can work through and even past those things, I promise you.
For sure.
And the other story I remember, this is a cool one. This is like after that, you'll have to help me with the story a little bit, is you like sent me a photo and you're like, I was, well, one, you like moved vending machines a bit. I remember that you would stuff them and help with that. But then like you,
Yeah.
you put
Oh my
like,
God. I remember the moped
that's what I
story.
was gonna. Okay, so tell the
Yeah.
story. I love this. I love this. That's where I was going.
Okay, so I was helping a friend of mine. Her moped broke down in our law building, in our law office, and for some reason, none of the guys were around. No husbands, no boyfriends. None of the muscle were around,
You're
and my
like, I
coworkers.
got this.
Yeah, first it wasn't even me. My coworkers were like, "Dude, you're like training every day. Just like come help me move my moped." And I was like, "I mean, sure. Like I don't know. Like I've never moved a motorcycle before or whatever. But I guess because it's a moped, it's lighter. It was not lighter. I don't
Right,
know how
right.
heavy this thing was, but we were in a parking garage and it was three girl. It was me and two women well over their 45s. So they were in like their late 40s who were not fit at whatsoever. So they were like, this is on you. Like, you're going to carry everything. And we set up a ramp to a pickup truck. The pickup truck was a little bit lifted too, which was a horrible idea because it's harder to get it up that incline. And I remember that I was like, okay, if I get like a running start, I could probably get it halfway and then you girls can help me up the other way. And then I see them and I'm like, you know what? Maybe you guys should stay away from the ramp because you guys are not coordinated enough to help me. So I legitimately, I think I tried running it up and I was like, no, like it bounces instead. So instead I did like a pull. I like stood in front of it and like pulled it back and I I remember thinking like, oh, this is like what Damien makes me do on like the inclined, like either the sledding, not the
Yeah, yeah, we
either
got
the
that
sled
incline
pulls
or the sled
or
pull. Yeah,
the incline like walk
yeah,
thing that
yeah.
you make me do. While like holding weight. I'm like, this is insane. And like it was like really heavy. And I got it up there like no problem. I remember thinking like I like definitely engaged more of like my quads than I did my actual back. And I just kept
Uh-huh.
my arms straight and pulled it through. And then to bring it down, because we were like, woohoo, we got it on. We had to bring it down, which was for some yeah, we were like, great, we got it down. Um to get it onto the actual ramp, there was like a foot distance to get it up. So I had to lift it legitimately, like lift it onto the ramp and then control it down, which was harder than pulling it up because of the momentum that it was
Right, right.
pulling me down in. And when I thought it was going to be so difficult, it was not. It wasn't even like I was muscling my way through. It was like I had the strength to pull it up without getting injured. And the other two ladies tried before me and they couldn't do it. So I was like, I'm like super strong.
Heck yeah, man.
Like, this is like, I was really impressed. I remember I sent you a text before, like, I texted my mom or something. I was like, dude, I just like lifted this thing by myself into a
Yes.
pickup truck. And then my mom like texted back. She's like, it has wheels. I'm like, I don't want to see you come over
Yeah,
here and
you
like
come
try
do
to lift this thing
that.
like 4 feet in the air. But that was another like benchmark of like, dang, like I can lift heavy things in like proper form more so than the average person my age, right?
Absolutely.
And I tested it after that too, like where I was like lift both of my nephews at the same time, like toss them, see like how far I could toss them into the pool until my sister told us to stop. But it was like constantly like, okay, I'm getting like for somebody who's like 30, I'm lifting like really heavy stuff. Like my dad couldn't toss my nephew as far as I could, and that's again, it's the movement that we would do with like the weighted medicine balls. I'm just like grabbing it and I'm gonna toss him against the wall, pretending like he's
Yes.
gonna run into the like just toss him into the pool. And it was never. It became like these movements that I was doing every day, just like heavier weight, and I was like, who needs muscle? Like who needs a guy? Like I totally got this.
That's right. What you didn't know is you're secretly, I've been
Yeah.
training you to lift your nephews as they get heavier and move mopeds into trucks. That is honestly what my training is centered around.
Yes. Goals. That's gonna be the next CrossFit competition. Just like
Yes.
small people tossing and lifting vehicles into other vehicles
It's going to be the daily games, not the
for
not the
sure.
CrossFit games. It's going to be like things in the daily
Ah,
life that are like awkward. It's like carrying like an
yeah,
absurd amount of groceries for like a family of six, like for a distance, and then like just putting
yeah.
it in
It's like
cupboards.
it was like bring all the weightlifters. Let's see who could really lift. Like pass them like a child. Pass them like
Literally just like
a
all their
guitar
kids are
amp.
there and you have to like pick them up and like run with them for
Yeah,
distance. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And then if you can't lift them, you got to take them home for the rest of your life, and you're screwed.
That's right. That's right. Loser takes home the
That's
kids
your
and now you're
punishment.
stuck. That's your penalty. I think we got a
Yeah.
business model there, Nicole.
Honestly, I think so too. For sure. At least a TV show. Just
Oh,
bring John Cena in and he'll be
I
a
was gonna say
star.
it's gonna be like the American Squid Games.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. That'd be
Now,
sick.
dude, that's so awesome to hear about like all those like amazing things that you're like able to do now. For maybe some people who are listening who are like on the fence or like thinking about, taking that next step, taking action, like what advice would you give them on like a personal note? Like, is it a confidence thing? Like, what would you say is like, hey, if you're just starting out, like, here's my advice to you, person to person.
I think if you're just starting out, it has to be first of all, actually start. Like show up for yourself first. Learn to show up for yourself and then challenge yourself to keep at it for at least 4 weeks.
Hmm.
Because I'm I'm a person who believes that if you develop a habit enough, it stops becoming dreadful and it's just part of your routine. And I know that it's probably redundant to say that it's a lifestyle, but it really is. Fitness is truly is a lifestyle. And if you show up for yourself and you keep yourself at least for a month just going consistently to whatever regimen that your trainer puts you to, it's important to just show up for yourself. And I think that's where people kind of like are discouraged with working out when they show up for the first couple of sessions and they are like, "What? I'm not, I'm sore
Hmm.
or I'm tired or I'm like really sore." Well, first of all, I think working with you, I was never like in a place where I'm so sore I can't even stand up. But I was definitely, it's always been like a good sore. Like I'm
Yeah.
sore because I know that I was working. But I think people get discouraged because they're like, I'm sore or I'm tired or I just don't see the point. I think I didn't start seeing results so well into my training with you, like at least losing the weight,
Hmm.
seeing results. That I definitely got stronger pretty fast. But losing like the pant size and everything, I didn't see it till like at least a month or two in.
Hmm.
And I remember like it's different for everybody. It takes time to see your goals come to fruition. So I
Absolutely.
think just continuously step it up or like show up for yourself would be a big one.
Yeah, they
Definitely.
say they say showing up is half the battle. I'd argue in fitness, showing up is the vast majority, especially when you're new. It's like if you can just
Yeah.
show up, even if you have like a bad plan, like even if
Yeah.
you are going to like a group fitness class, like if you just show up super, super consistently, like you're gonna see benefit. And like Nicole said, that 1 month mark is usually pretty big. And another big one that I really see is like 90 days, like three
Mm.
months. If you can stick with something, and that's people will sound like 90 days, that's so long. It's like it's not
It's
really.
not. It
It,
flies
it goes by
quick.
really fast. It's less than a semester of school. Like
Yep.
it is, January, February, and then end of March. Like it goes by super quick. Like we're already in March. We're recording this on the last day of February. We're already
Hmm.
about to be in March. And if you had just started on, you had your New Year's resolution, you started in January, you're already 60 days in to the year.
Yep.
And so, just having the courage, right? Even though you may be afraid and fear of judgment, that's normal human emotion, like having the courage to like invest in yourself to take action and just say, you know what? I am just going to stick with this for me and for me alone for the time being. And I'm going to just keep going and good things will come because they will. They
Yeah,
will.
the results definitely do come, and as they come, you get even more motivated. I think we implemented like a diet about like 4 or 5
Hmm.
months into my training, and it exponentially changed just my lifting as well and my strength training. It just the results do come when they do come, it's just more motivation to keep yourself accountable.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, dude, I appreciate you so much and like giving me your time. And like, honestly, like these last year and a half, 2 years have been a blast. And I'm so excited that we still get to work together, man. And for you
Same,
being just
same.
an amazing human.
Anytime I train, I'm back home and I'm able to train in person with you. I try to be able to bring my family in so they could have one session with you. And everybody has always been really consistent in saying it's amazing and it's definitely worth it. And I'm super excited for whatever is next. And I'm thankful and appreciative of all the time you've put into training and helping me too.
Hell yeah, man. Hell yeah. No, thank you all so much. And y'all know where to find me. I'm on Instagram, YouTube. We're not really on TikTok anymore, just Instagram and YouTube, the big one at _shift_method. If you want to be a badass like Nicole, you want to come work with me down at Johnny O's gym, you can just DM me on Instagram. We'll get you set up with a free consultation. I call it an action plan where we actually map out your life in terms of what you want to accomplish and how I can help you out. Or you can just go to my website, theshiftmethod.org, click any of those take action buttons, fill out a short form for me, and I'll get back to you in a day. And of course, you guys can always message me on social media. I put up daily content. I do podcasts every other week. I do YouTube videos every other week. So we also got this long form content for just some fun education for all you who watch. But again, Nicole, appreciate you so much, girl. Thank you so much. Hope you have a wonderful night.
Yeah. Thank you.
Later.